I just wonder your initial reaction when you learned about the Department of Education's directive to colleges and universities, to K through 12 institutions, basically saying dismantle any and everything that remotely looks like, smells like, or could be DEI, or else risk losing your federal funding.
I think share in the same type of kind of shock and dismay as the rest of, particularly Black society, but any critically conscious human being when I saw that. A good friend of mine, Brittany Cooper, kind of summed it up on her Instagram account as the new form of resegregation. This is not simply anymore kind of a tactic to make affirmative action type of moves to increase diversity and equity, short-lived, to shut down. This is literally about institutionalizing white supremacy, because this means not just Black studies, but Asian studies, Jewish studies, women's studies, LGBTQ plus studies. I mean, it absolutely is a very clear, unequivocal attempt to strong-arm the universities into only engaging intellectually with a very biased, celebratory perspective with straight white men. I think, even though I imagine that these people had the gumption in terms of their own personal politics to play around with that idea, in their kind of small groups, as we talked about previously in that Project 2025, I didn't think they would be as bold as to try and shove this down the throats of universities. That was a bit shocking, but as we've seen with this administration, anything that was kind of set as precedents before is now completely obliterated. We're living in a whole new, suddenly I guess we celebrate with Russia now, and Ukraine evidently invaded Russia, and what's up is down. But this is definitely Jim Crow 2.0.
So what we know, Professor Ikard, about Donald Trump, he likes to float these very extreme positions, like you just said, like Ukraine invaded Russia, and that the Ukrainian president is a dictator. We know the opposite to be the truth.
Right.
And so there are many who believe that this eliminate everything on your campuses, from Black graduations to Black affinity groups and Asian affinity groups and all of those. It's really not about universities doing it, but it is the carrot and stick approach that he uses to extract something.
Right.
Extort, I'll even use that word, something from universities, which, given that we've seen this over and over again, how come more universities aren't standing up to him in the way we've seen? A couple profiles encouraged, but it seems to me that more universities would be pushing back, because there's no legal basis for his position. He's trying to argue that that decision by the Supreme Court that limited affirmative action in admissions is the basis, but the legal experts have been clear that there's nothing in that decision that supports this extreme position
at all.
So universities have good lawyers, they have law professors, they have legal teams. So why the capitulation?
Well, that's a great question. I know what's kind of been bandied about as a sit on the fence position by a lot of these universities is what they called principled neutrality. Right, principled neutrality, which basically is a contradiction in terms, because it suggests that you can be principled, but at the same time stay neutral, right? Which, from you imagine that a bunch of marketers, maybe some lawyers, kind of got in a room with some wordsmiths and figured out how do we How do we commit to like saying, hey, we stand on things in a principled way, but then be able to take no position? And I imagine that principled neutrality was born out of that boardroom discussion. It's a very sexy way to sit on your hands.
Right.
Because as we know, to be principled is to have a line that if anybody crosses, you are going to take a stand. Martin Luther King was principled when he still spoke out against the Vietnam War, even though Johnson had signed that civil rights bill. And even though a lot of his own black constituencies were telling MLK, like, throw him a bone, throw the president a bone, he's did this thing. And MLK was like, no, this is my principle. I am anti-war, even though it's going to be unpopular, even when we get a win. Why? Because this is not just about politics. I am principled in this way. This is a fundamental principle of mine. I am anti-war. And it was very unpopular when he did that. So you can't be principled and neutral. And I think I think about that old saying that we attribute to Michael Jordan, which I don't know if it's ever been actually verified, right? But Republicans buy shoes too. So Republicans pay big endowments. Republicans bring their money, their power, their prestige to these universities too. And these universities, in a lot of ways, don't want to be on the wrong side of that paycheck. And I think what has happened, because I think the universities thought that they could take this neutral position, and because they were on the sidelines, they could appease both groups. But what they're seeing now in dramatic fashion, which is really causing some major, major headaches, and it may, in fact, radically change who can even be accepted into schools next year, because if this holds, and if they can't get that money released in time, even if it gets released, if it's not released in a particular time frame, that means universities that typically maybe offer discounts for students if they make below a certain type of wage. Your parents make a certain amount of money, you get free tuition, like a place like Vanderbilt. I think if you make under a household income under $80,000 and you get accepted, you basically can go to Vanderbilt for free. Those kind of programs we might see them go away.